welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy Podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sacred Femme Alchemy Podcast. Super excited to be here. This is going to be a short fire episode. I love these short fire episodes. I was like, okay, I want to record something. I was inspired, and so I'm going to share it. And this was actually inspired from a gathering that I had for a book club, part of a book club. We're reading Women Who Run the Wolves online community. And in the chapter, we were discussing about relationships and love and, obviously embodying the wild woman archetype, but then what kind of, relationship does a wild woman need, and ultimately it comes down to the other person being able to go to the depths within themselves, right? Water seeks its own level. We attract the people of where we've been and how far we've been and the depths that we've reached within ourselves. And one of the interesting things that I kept hearing and I kept reading in the group chat and hearing from other women was how they couldn't find a partner that was willing to do the work. And I hear this a lot from some of my friends. And then I also hear a lot from my other friends of just how they've attracted secure partnership with men that are emotionally available and ready to settle down. And it got me thinking, I love coaching. I love getting coached sometimes because I can be pretty self-righteous. And, sometimes, for myself, I want someone to co-sign my bullshit. But then again, when we don't have people that we surround ourselves with who are willing to call us out, it creates this opportunity for us to just stay stuck in this loop, to stay stuck in these patterns. And that's why when I coach, I gently show you the blocks that are coming up for you. I don't say it as, even in my one-off EFT sessions with people, like I tell them because it's like, you can either live in the fakeness of your life, going through the same loop, going through the same patterns, or you can have someone shine a light on those opportunities for you to break free out of them. And then it's your free will. You have your own sovereignty to continue or do sometimes the heavy lifting, the heavy work of actually changing, because change takes time. It is difficult to change the way we do things, to change our actions, because it's always sometimes our patterns are sometimes rooted in fear, whether it's, it's conscious, subconscious. And so when I was in this session and hearing all these women say like, oh my gosh, I haven't found someone that's willing to do the work with me. I haven't found someone that is emotionally available. I haven't found someone, I'm always attracting these people that just don't want to go deep. And it got me thinking like, wow, like what is the narrative, especially when you surround yourself with different people? If you're with your girlfriends and you're thinking about, oh my gosh, there are no available guys. I'm so tired of swiping, blah, 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 blah. I just want to meet people naturally. This person wasn't that great. They didn't ask me questions about myself. It's just like, it becomes this whole opportunity to kind of like shit on men. And when you're surrounding yourself with that, you're creating that narrative in your mind that there's nobody good out there. Like, think about the male friends that you have. No, not the male friends that you like to call on to give you attention. No, not those friends. But the ones where it's like strictly platonic, where it's kind of like that brotherly relationship where you can talk to them about relationships. They can talk to you about the relationships. Like, hopefully you've had those healthy masculine influences in your life, whether it's, your actual sibling or, cousin or a really, really good friend. And just think about that. And so see if you can substitute all of those negative beliefs, those negative conditionings that you've had about the men in your life. And this is just like a super easy journaling exercise of like, okay, and it doesn't even have to be very specific around like, okay, the blocks in my life about men, but it's just like seeing how you can actually put all of your thoughts on a blank canvas around what are my thoughts around men? What are the thoughts I have about them? It doesn't have to be romantic, right? Like, I'm like, okay, there's all these different things happening in my head right now. Even thinking about like, I get this too. Like my biggest block is thinking that there are no good men leaders, right? Because of the world that we're in right now, seeing what's happening in the oligarchy, like all of these things. Like there's no healthy masculine men that have money, right? It's like, oh, they always use it as a way to one-up you. It's a way to have power over you. And when I think about my career, there was a male leader who I just really admired, really admired. Emotional intelligence, really cared about his employees, was a great leader, really amplified and kind of unleashed you into the potential of what he saw, even when you could not see it within yourself. And I remember him clearly sitting me down and telling me like, there's something like about you where, I give you these opportunities, but you just don't think that you're good enough for them, right? You don't believe that you can do them. And that really, that was hard to hear, but for someone to just be my advocate and say that and like be in conversations where I wasn't there and really tout me and be a sponsor in a way, and obviously, we would work together. And so I had credibility with them and they could actually validate my work and all this stuff before he was able to vouch for me in different, executive settings. But that was the first time where I realized, oh my goodness, there are male leaders who use their power, their position for good, for greatness. And so I really want you to think about, what is your perception of the men in this world, right? And maybe you can glean it up from your experiences of, ultimately it's kind of like that experience we've had with the ultimate men in our lives, the fathers in our lives. It can be different bosses you've had. It can be different friends you've had. It can be romantic relationships. And so I almost want you to create this pie, this category of like all these different men, where they fit, and what is your belief system around that. And when you get to really understand where you're coming from, where you're starting from, that's when you start to see like, oh, okay, this is what's coming up. This is like that subconscious narrative that keeps playing in my head. And that's something that I'm responding to, even though I don't even know it when I'm interacting with other people. This is the field that I'm projecting onto my reality. And when we have that ability to bring awareness around that, that's when we're able to create this beautiful change of, okay, obviously we have the subconscious show, but then realizing I can actually change it. I can make it better. I can work on looking to see those opportunities where there are great men in my life. Or if my friends have relationships, seeing, oh my gosh, they actually happen to meet them online and they aren't douches and they treated them really well. And, it's so interesting. It's like we have a lot of information. We have a lot of data on the belief system that we have, and it can be very negative. But then where can you find that diamond, that pearl of wisdom, where it's that one little outlier? Because all you need is just one outlier. And if you focus and you shift your focus on that, then that can actually amplify and grow 10x. And you start to look for that. You start to look for clues. And I've spoken about this before, but I remember when I made that commitment to go back dating again. And then all of a sudden, every single person that I had met, even though we ended up not being together, they all had this ability to communicate with me in a very, very responsible way, right? I was dating, it was like 3 men that just like really showed up. And, they made an impression on me. And that really showed me, even though they weren't an actual match, they were showing me that, oh, I can have this similar interest with someone. Oh, someone can apologize and understand and have empathy of where I'm coming from. And I don't have to convince them that I need an apology. And another person happened to go to therapy, and they were sharing their story of why and how, they felt emotionally unavailable and they wanted to get in touch with that. And, they communicated to me and they called me. And, I even remember he went on a trip and, there was a woman in there and he immediately knew. In my mind, I was like, oh, there's a girl in there. And he immediately knew. He's like, oh yeah, this is just my friend. I didn't even have to ask. And this is not to say like, oh, the great men are the ones that just mind read. Like, no. But it's almost like they've gone through enough experiences to understand what other people's triggers are and understand, it's just like being transparent in communication. And honestly, I think that is the hottest thing, is having that transparency around communication, having that transparency around what it is that you need, and being able to look for that. Because a lot of the times we can have those projections in our head, but we're not necessarily playing that, like that's not the reality. And all we have to do is communicate to someone we're dating or communicate to someone, new that's in our life. Like, hey, this is what's coming up for me. Can you, provide more context around this? And that comes from a place of just really, really being able to be so secure in yourself. A lot of the times we always want like, oh, I want a secure attachment system and blah, 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 blah. And like, it's like sometimes we'll think we need the conditions to happen in order for us to be secure. It's like a secure person is someone who's able to, you can have fear, you can have anxiety about, what it is that you need to say to someone, expressing your needs because you're unsure how it's going to be met. But the anxiety that I see often happens when people are projecting their needs not being met. And when I work with people and I ask them like, oh, okay, well, did you already have that discussion with them? And you know that they just aren't going to meet it. Or is it just in your head that they're not going to meet it and you don't want to have that conversation? You're having anxiety about something in the future that hasn't even happened yet. And usually 100% of the time it's the latter. And so we have to really think about, okay, in our desire to call in healthy partnership, in our desire to call in healthy relationships, how can we be that embodied, empowered, woman in our lives to feel secure, feel grounded in ourselves, and have a healthy perspective on the masculine in our lives? And if we see that maybe there are opportunities for change, how can we move towards that? And that's what I do in my one-on-one coaching, is that we actually look at all those beliefs. We do the work around it. We see how there are opportunities in your lives to actually change it, how to respond differently, how to act differently. We do it on a mind, body, and spiritual level. And so I'd love to invite you. I have 2 spots open for one-on-one coaching. If you want to dive deeper into this area, if you truly want to heal and clear those blocks around the masculine in your life, to call in healthy partnership and to just embody and exude that groundedness, that security within yourself, so that you can be your wild, authentic self in relationships. I'd love to work with you one-on-one. I will drop it in the show notes. You can shoot me, a DM, or you can hop on a call and see if we're a fit. All right, I hope this episode served you. Short, less than 15 minutes. Amazing. All right, Sat Nam.